The Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 10, The Lost and the Plunderers. Now, this episode I actually really enjoyed. I like this one a bit more than the last episode. I think the way they kind of paced the story, jumping around between the characters, and of course, picking up right where the last episode left off, and you have Rick and Michonne as they're kind of doing their thing. Starts off with Michonne's storyline where she's going through the process of, that instantaneous process of grief right after Carl's death, and I thought that was really cool. I like the way they handled it because they were the last two in Alexandria, so I kind of like the way that they kind of had this interesting sort of somber experience where everyone took off at night, and it's like, all right, Carl is gonna die here. Like, this is how this is gonna happen. He wouldn't have made it, to the other communities. So they go through this process of, like I said, that immediate right after grief, and she walks down, and they have the part where it's Carl and Judith's handprints in paint. And I thought that was really cool. And she puts her hand over his, and she's crying and stuff. And they go through this moment where it's like, like we're kind of stuck. We're in this weird in between of having lost our son and going forward with war. Like, we're still in the middle of war, but we just had like basically the biggest loss that we could kind of handle right now. And I thought that was really cool. I like the way it was handled in the episode, and it was pretty much the whole episode was kind of dealing with like loss and confusion in kind of a lot of different ways. It was like the emotional element of that with Michonne, Rick, as well as Jadis, but we also have kind of that bit of loss and like not really being sure how to move forward with that next step with pretty much everything else that was kind of war based. So I like the way it was kind of handled throughout the entire thing, but I like how it started off with her story, and then as it jumps around with the characters, we even have Enid and Aaron's storyline come back where they're at the I believe it's Seaside is what they call that community, and surprisingly it didn't seem that bad. I was like, man, every time they go there they just screw up more more and more, but this time it wasn't that bad. It was like, you get to live, and Enid goes away, and Aaron's like, I'm gonna stay here and basically try to figure something out. So I'm sure that'll work. I don't think that he's gonna go right back in and get murdered. So I'm sure that'll end up playing out. Everything will be fine there. But I thought it was interesting. I was like, okay, it was definitely like the smallest storyline in the episode, but it was kind of just like, yeah, we kind of showed you guys this at the end of the last, or during the mid-season finale, and even that was like a super quick storyline, and then it was gone. So it's like, we gotta, here's what's happening, and then they kind of, that way it just moves along a little bit. But I love the way they handled, especially I would say my favorites had to be Rick, Jadis, and Simon's. Definitely my favorite three storylines because the stuff they did in those I thought was incredibly well done. So Michelle's I thought was great. Like, it was definitely the slow start to the episode, and like I said, it was that beginning contemplation of being stuck in that moment of sadness and then moving forward because they're in war. They almost have to just be like, all right, he's dead, and then move on. But that just doesn't happen. So I like the way it was handled, where she was kind of the one who was a little bit dealing with it before Rick even was. But she did have that moment where she was like, that's basically where he just used to sit in this little gazebo, and it's on fire. So she wanted to, get the fire out with fire extinguishers. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting part of her not really letting go, even though they're leaving the entire city behind. Like, that whole community is gone, and they might bring it back depending on what they do with it. But I thought it was interesting. It was like everything is gone right now. There's not like that one thing is being destroyed. Everything's gone, but she wanted to save it because it was that, when you make those random connections to people that you loved and lost. So I like how that played out in the beginning, and then that kind of permeates throughout kind of what they're doing. That was kind of her moment of having to let it go because she had it first, where it was like, she was sticking to that, that little bit of architecture, basically, that little construction. And then it's like, crap, there's a lot more to be left behind than just, the body of Carl. So I like how that was handled, and then it goes into Negan's storyline, which kind of led into the crazy Simon stuff, and I was like, I don't know if he's gonna live or if he's gonna try to turn on Negan or what they're gonna be doing with this character, because he was, oh man, him in this episode, he was just effing up left and right. Like, he goes through, it's like, yeah, we dealt with the stuff with Maggie and everything, no big deal. So we're gonna go in, mow them all down, kill these people, kill those people, and it's like, Negan's basically like, you need to calm the F down. Like, we got tricked, things went bad, but we're not killing everybody because we need them as resources. Like, you don't seem to understand that we still need these people. Like, it's not just, let's cut our losses and stuff. I honestly thought he might just kill this dude right here just for saying that. So I don't know how. I don't think Simon's gonna be making it to the end of the season. That's just my theory on after this episode, especially. So they go through that, and then the whole stuff where they actually get the first casket of the people that were taken in by Maggie and her people. So it's like, all right, well, that didn't exactly go as well as you thought it did, huh? So Negan's pissed off, and then he sends Simon to do his thing, and it's like classic message: kill one person, do this. One person. He even says it. And I was like, okay. Simon goes. He's mad. He's real angry. He wants to kill everybody. It's pretty much all he wants to do is just kill everybody and stop dealing with war. So he goes in, talks to the I'm just gonna call them the trash people and Jadis, and it's like, all right, give us an apology. No big deal. Bygones be bygones. That's what Negan wanted. All you have to do is say you're sorry. Give us the guns. Everything's great. Copacetic. And he was just mad. He was just real mad. And Jada said she was sorry. It was like, there's remorse. And I was like, okay, well, boom, he killed the one person. And I was like, okay. He kind of did what he needed to do. He kind of waited till the end, and he kind of played him a little like, everything will be perfectly fine if you just apologize, which was never really the case. But it was like, okay, he's kind of playing him, and he's definitely doing it well. So then he does it, and I was like, all right. And then she freaked out a little bit more. It was like, there is remorse. And then he shot the old guy, and I was like, okay. Or he shot the guy first, and then he shot the other woman. And I was like, okay, well, he killed two people. He's just, all right. He's effing up. He already screwed up. And then she was really mad, and she punched him. Now, at first, I thought he was having, some villains are like so crazy when they get beat up. They're like, oh, that was amazing and stuff like that. I thought he was having one of those moments where he was laughing. It was like, like I'm, killed two people, and she freaked out and punched me, and he was just like laughing. And I was like, okay, he's having, one of those crazy villain moments. And then I was like, no, he was just having a normal villain moment where he laughed because he knew, well, I guess I'm gonna have to murder everyone, and he does. He has every one of the trash people killed, except for Jada. She ends up surviving, and it's just like, okay, so all those people are dead. The whole theory about them possibly being the next set of villains, the Whispers, that's out, which I'm totally fine with because I didn't care much for them. But they did do something that was very interesting, which was ask what the location used to be, because he was like, what's the deal with the helipad in the back and all these solar panels? And I was like, well, that's super interesting because they never made any reference to that before, at least not that I can remember. So it was kind of just like, all right, this is just, a big trash heap. No big deal. That's just what they did. That's where they ended up being. It was a dump. So that was interesting. I was like, all right, that makes it seem like they're, if not this season, then next season, they'll be like, this is the back half of the, of what we never really got to see. And it's like this crazy, new location that they're going to own. But I thought that was interesting because they put that there for a reason, because obviously they've never referenced there being a helipad. Like I said, at least not as far as I can recall, but helipad and solar panels. It was like, what did this place used to be? And Jadis is like, oh, it's just a dump. But she knew what it was, but she doesn't say it, because I think it was when she was talking to Rick and Michonne, it was like, oh, these heaps weren't here before. Like when it first kind of happened, it was just trash kind of just in the field, and then we kind of made it into heaps and piles. So it was definitely something else. It could have just been a dump. It would have been like the most insanely fancy dump I've ever heard of in my life, with a helipad and solar panel. So I'm sure it was a bit more than that. It could have been like a crazy chemical plant, and that could have been like just the dumping area, so that technically could have been true. But it was it was certainly interesting, and also they obviously show a bit of a reference to the fact that it was something more than just a dump, because they had the the spot where she takes all the zombies out, like all her people, and they go into like the grinder, and I was like, okay, that's kind of dump based. It's a little bit with the obviously giant shredder, but it was like, yeah, solar panels and a helipad and a giant shredder. It doesn't just say dump to me. It says obviously the helipad and the solar panels are the big part, but it was definitely interesting. So Simon goes nuts, and then he lies to Negan like, message delivered and received. There was remorse, and then that was pretty much it, because that's when the Rick thing came in with the walkie-talkie. So then we go back to Jadis' story where we get to see Rick and Michonne when they show up there, and then they fight through, they do their thing, they end up escaping, and Rick does exactly what he did before with Carl, where it was like, I shot over her head, I didn't want her dead, I just wanted her gone, and it was interesting, and of course, I think that's what made him realize, because even after that, Michonne was like, that sounds like what Carl was kind of saying, and it was like, oh crap, like I literally said that stuff to Carl, and me doing that is what got him killed, because if he just tried to save that guy instead of assuming it was a trick, or if he just flat out killed him, it would have been said and done, and Carl wouldn't have gone out to try to help him. But that was interesting, and Jadis has to deal with the whole process of letting her people go, and she's still there. Snapped right out of that whole half sentence thing. It was full on sentences after everybody got murdered, and it was like, yeah, I used to paint, and then things got really crazy and stuff. It was like, yeah, she's talking super normal now. She's not all cold and upfront. It was like, no, she's effed up. It took her back in time. So who knows what's gonna happen with her character, but I am interested. For once, I guess I'm actually interested to see what they'll do with her character. But I love this scene with Rick where he's he's looking at the letters, and we find out Carl wrote something to Negan, and he calls him up on the walkie-talkie. Like, he wanted you to stop, he wanted me to stop, he just wanted peace. And of course, Rick is mad, and it's like, that's not gonna happen at this point, and I'm gonna kill you. Which, if you saw the premiere, that's not true. So I thought it was cool. I was like, all right, he's going through this moment, and we even get to see a bit of another human moment from Negan where he is upset that Carl is actually dead. So I was like, all right, that's cool. Very rare, but we do get to see him actually be just a guy who's upset, because he really did like Carl. It was just like, you're an effed up little kid, but I like you. It was kind of like that in the comics too. It was just like, you got some issues, but cool kid. And that was really just how it was. So I like that moment for sure, where he was like, I am legitimately sorry. And then it kind of went back to the villain mode, where it was like, it's your fault your son is dead, and you should have let me, after I killed your buddies, you should have realized that was me trying to help. Him having his weird thing where he thinks he's doing the right thing. But I like that. And that was another thing I liked about the episode. They kind of go back to that savior mentality where he really is like, we save people and stuff like that. Because even when Simon says, like, let's find other communities to save. And then when Negan kind of repeats himself and he says save, it's like, he really means save. He thinks he's like actually helping people. So I like that they kind of had that, some of that dialogue in there where it's like, you can tell it's not him just saying like, I'm saving people. It's like, he's crazy. He thinks he's saving people. So I did like it for that as well. But all in all, I thought this was actually a pretty good episode. Like I said, I enjoyed the pacing. Some of the storylines I just thought were actually really either acted really well or just interesting to watch. Like them killing out, an entire, the dump, I don't know, community, if you want to call it that. Killing all those people off, that's gonna change some things. Both sides are being like, hey, we want you to be with us. And then, of course, Negan now has those weapons, but all the people are dead. So he'll, of course, be pissed off with Simon, who may or may not have some people backing him up. So we don't exactly know how that's going to play out either. But definitely looking forward to where things are going with the Simon storyline and how that's going to play out between him and Negan. Next episode seems like it'll be interesting. We get to see what the rest of the crew is doing as they get to a new location. I think they're going to the hilltop, if I remember right. So now they're going through like this crazy dangerous swamp, so that should be cool just for the sake of cool stuff. And then we get to see Gabriel come back, and I forgot he was with somebody. I just can't remember who the heck it was. So we'll see what dumb thing he does next. So who knows? I don't know. It's Gabriel. They just man, he just most of the series has just been him being an annoying dude, not really doing the smart thing, but we'll see what happens in this next episode. It looked like he was sweating like crazy. It was just like, yeah, he could have been in that nice, cool car if you didn't want to save some random idiot. But Gabriel, that's what he does. So we'll see what happens with him in the next episode. But this one I thought was pretty fun. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Of course, would love to know, it's a big question, I guess, what was your favorite storyline from this episode? Mine, if I had to pick one, I would still say it was Simon's, just because he lost it, and then with everything that he did, I just can't wait to see what comes of that next. Like, everything else is like, okay, Jadis will join somebody, but it's just her. It's not going to be like that giant change. It'll just be her character is now doing something else. The seaside stuff, we'll see what happens there, but I kind of assume I know what's going to happen with that. They'll help them or something. And then with Simon, it's just like, that's the chaotic thing. I can probably assume what's going to happen, but it'll still lead to some of the most chaotic stuff I think we're going to have during the second half of the season. So it makes me the most excited. So that's why it's my favorite storyline. But I would love to know your favorite storyline from this episode. And of course, what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.